Welcome, everybody. It's Friday, August 4th. John Aravosis here at the Aravosis Report, coming to you live from Washington, D.C. to talk about the latest news from Ukraine. Let me get TikTok rolling on my iPad. We have a just ridiculously busy news day. Hang on here. There we go. Flip the image. There we go. All right. Woo! As always, we'll wait maybe a couple minutes for folks to arrive, and then we'll get rolling. Introduce yourselves, if you would, where you are. But boy, is it a busy news day. My God. I mean, there was enough news already, and then it exploded in the last half hour just to be even more news. So we'll see. I wanted to do Discord, but I'm not convinced we're going to do Discord tonight. I think we're going to have way too much news. I sort of whittled it down, and there's still too much news. Anyway, hello all. How are we all doing? As I said, I'm going to, what am I going to, oh yeah, we're going to wait about another minute. Oh, no sound. All right. Try it again, TikTok. Hang on. All right. TikTok likes to be evil. I unplugged and replugged on TikTok. All right. How about now for TikTok? There we go. Still on? Okay. There we go. Yeah, TikTok gets evil sometimes. Good to know. Mike check. My TikTok sound wasn't quite working there. All right. Welcome, everybody. Like I said, we're going to wait a minute or so for folks to arrive. Thank you, John, for the gift. Appreciate that. Woo, boy. Busy news day. My God. I mean, my God. So I'm looking here at all the news here. Ooh, that's interesting. Sorry, looking here. Like I said, lots of breaking news happening, guys. Or maybe not lots, but important breaking news. Who is that? Magical. Thank you, Magical. Very nice of you. I'm looking at my my defense Twitter just to see latest little updates here. Interesting. All right. Well, we shall see here. All right. Anyway, wow, busy night, guys. Oh my God. Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of news going on. I'm gonna give it another sec. Oh, you know what? Well, I think I have enough water for the moment. I was gonna say I didn't refill my water, but I think I got enough water. Thank you, Louie. About halfway through the show, I'm getting more water. All right, guys, I'm gonna get rolling here. So welcome. Thank you, Big Hawk. Welcome, everybody. We have a rather big news day today, a busy news day, just turned into a big news day. Thank you, Carrie. The Ukrainians appear to have attacked the Kirch Bridge again, the bridge in southern Crimea, in the last half hour. Trying to sort of get the latest updates on it, but kind of big news, and it was already a busy news day. Welcome all. I am in Washington, D.C. Thank you, McFadge. Talking to you here about the latest from Ukraine. Thank you, Ellie. The way the show works is the first half of the show, I talk about what is done is the Kirch Bridge. It looks like possibly. But I will talk about the latest news from Ukraine and then take your guys' questions. As far as supporting my work, I always am very happy if you guys support my work. A couple ways you can do that on TikTok. Thank you, Martin. Martin gives you a perfect example. The gifts on TikTok are very helpful because I do this full time. Thank you, Tom. I do this full time, and basically these gifts are my salary, believe it or not. So it helps me keep going. So I appreciate it. And on YouTube, you can do the super chat questions, the super stickers, memberships. You see all the green people like Kay and Tim and Luna and Carlos, among others. Those are monthly subscribers. Thank you very much, by the way, you four, among others, for being monthly subscribers. And you can become a monthly subscriber by clicking the $sign at the bottom of the comments on YouTube. And you'll see a couple options come up. You want membership. Oop, it's like, you know what? I'm going to refresh the page. It's all right. Let me check my settings. Scarlett. All right. How are we now on YouTube? Oh, thank you, TikTok friends. We're waiting a second here for the YouTubers. All right. I've refreshed the page on YouTube. Thank you. Who is that? Paula or Paulo? Oh, Paulo. Paulo. I'm calling you Paulo. Okay. TikTok YouTubers. How are we doing? Is it still choppy or no? I mean, I refreshed. There's nothing I can really do other than that. It's good now. Okay. Okay, good. Just let me know. Because the only thing is I have Twitter open, but it shouldn't necessarily cause a problem. So, okay, fascinating. All right. So, anyway, please do keep the gifts coming, guys. I very much appreciate it. We've got breaking news today, which is going to like totally upturn my show. The Ukrainians are right now in the process of attacking the Kirch Bridge in southern Ukraine. This is a bridge that, thank you, Mando, that Putin built to connect Russia, which is actually right here, about 12 miles off of Ukraine. Russia actually is right here, continues this way. And Putin built this bridge. Thank you, Ellie. I'm hoping the celebrations are for the bridge. Putin built this bridge to connect Russia to Crimea, which he stole from the Ukrainians in 2014. Well, Zelensky, the Ukrainians last week attacked the bridge. We knew this, right? Remember last week they first of all, okay, they attacked the bridge last October. And they did some really good damage to the bridge last October. Well, they attacked it again last week. Thank you, Jay and Bruce. They attacked it last week. And remember, the bridge has two main, what do you call it? Directions, or what do they call them? Not platforms, whatever they call them, but two main things going both ways. Thank you, Maverick. And this one has two roads. This one has two roads. Well, one of them got damaged last week so that only the other one is working, which means the Russians had to go one lane, okay, on this, slowing down the traffic significantly between Russia and Crimea, occupied Ukraine. The rail bridge seemed to be still working well, we think. Thank you, CW and Street Rat. Well, Zelensky, the day right after they attacked it, Zelensky last Friday, thank you, Elizabeth, and I mentioned this to you guys. Thank you, M. Fuller. Zelensky last week said, thank you, Chief, that the Kirch Bridge had to come down. This was, by the way, right after they attacked it. He said this bridge has to come down. It is the basically the lifeblood. Thank you, Ellie. The lifeblood for the Russian occupation, because if you look at this, the Russians send a ton of ammunition, fuel, even food and water, and additional troops and equipment across the bridge, and it helps Crimea, Kherson, Zaporizhia. All of these areas are getting supplied across the Kirch Bridge. That's why they need to take this bridge out. Thank you, Tomcat. And Zelensky said last Friday, after they attacked it already, right? They attacked it last Thursday or so. I don't remember the exact day. Zelensky said on Friday, we need to take this bridge down entirely. It is the main artery for supplying the occupation. Thank you, Andy. About a half an hour ago, maybe 40 minutes ago, there were reports. The trolls, I'm just warning the moderators, the trolls are going to be crazy tonight. Now, they probably haven't gotten their marching orders yet. Thank you, Neil, because it's like panic time for them. But yes, the trolls are going to be a little nuts today. So what we know so far, local residents in the area around the Kirch Bridge, okay? So again, around here, local residents report loud explosions. Thank you, James. We believe Ukraine has attacked the bridge with sea and air drones. So unmanned drones in the air and unmanned drones in the sea, similar to the attack that Ukraine did yesterday. I don't even remember what I've talked about now. Oh my God. I'm like already this is hilarious. Thank you, adventurers. I thought I briefed you yesterday about the boat the Ukrainians almost sank today. This is such a news day. It's insane. So earlier today, what was going to be my top story is that I know I haven't even had any wine. Thank you, Konnichiwa. Earlier today, what was going to be my top story, the Ukrainians attacked a Russian warship that's over here. Basically, Russia continued in the port of Novorossiysk. Is that the way you pronounce it? Yeah, Novorossiysk. In the Russian port of Novorossiysk, it is a big commercial port, but also a port for warships getting oil and warships themselves. It's a naval port. The Ukrainians attacked a Russian ship, a pretty important Russian ship, caused so much damage. They used their water drones, right? The boat drones. They caused so much damage. Thank you, adventurers, that with the boat getting pulled to port during daytime, you could see the boat quite literally. If this is the boat was like this, and all the experts looking at it said this ship had a lot of damage. Thank you, Marcy and Pedro. Really big damage, right? Listing to port. I don't know which side it was listing. It was listing left, right? Is that port? But a lot of damage to this boat. So that was the big news today. Well, then tonight at around midnight, 12:30 Ukrainian time, they decided to attack the Kirch Bridge as well. Thank you, Crazy American. What's interesting about that is a couple different things. First of all, Ukraine hasn't really done attacks like this before. What I mean is, typically they didn't do sort of a boat attack and then another port attack like the night after, right? So I think yesterday's attack was important. Thank you. I should say last night's attack was important, but I think they were potentially doing it to also distract from tonight's, because the Russians wouldn't think the Ukrainians would do it again. Or if they thought they would do it again, thank you, Red Watts, they probably thought the Ukrainians would go for another port. So they beefed up the ports. Now, another story that's coming out about the Kirch Bridge attack tonight is that a Russian oil tanker may have been hit by a Ukrainian naval drone, by one of the boat drones, as I call them, from the Ukrainians. If that's true, that gets very interesting, because you now have. But let's see if it's true. I'm not convinced this is true. If it's true, this could cause real problems for the Russians. Actually, okay, we're getting more reports here, hearing that what I'm giving you, by the way, the information I'm going to give you guys during the show is coming from people I follow on social media who are defense experts, but they're sharing raw intelligence, okay? So they're not sharing things that we know for a fact, an established fact yet. Thank you, Lise. Because partially it's 1:15 in the morning in Ukraine. It's blackout, right? It's dark. The Russians shut off the lights to the bridge as soon as the attack started. So therefore, it's going to be difficult using satellites, even using social media, because typically the Russians that are on the bridge on their cars would take pictures and stuff, right? So the information we're getting is not guaranteed, but listen to this. Hearing that Russian-flagged SIG was hit early this morning in the Kerch Strait. Unclear if it was a direct hit or debris falling from a UAV. Interesting. So it looks like a Russian oil tanker was hit, but it could have been hit from debris falling from basically the Russians blowing up one of it, right? Really interesting. Okay. And of course, some false photos being shared. Big surprise there. Wow. Okay. In any case, let me tell you some more news on this. So local residents report at least 3 explosions at the Crimean Bridge, small arms fire attempting to shoot some of the drones. The Russians, I guess, opened fire on them. So let's talk a little bit about the boat drone. So the boat drone, I told you, took out a landing ship in the port of Novorossiysk. Per the New York Times, the Novorossiysk commercial seaport is one of Russia's largest by volume and among the biggest in Europe, a major node in the export of Russian grain, oil, and other products to countries around the world. Russia claimed that they destroyed all the drones and they did no damage. Well, then morning comes and you see the boat is just listing like this. Clearly major damage on this ship. The Ukrainian attack was clearly, I would say it had some military purposes, but also some psychological purposes. Economically, this was an important attack because this is a port that the Russian naval ships use. It is also a port that that the Russians themselves, thank you, Ellie, that the Russians themselves use a lot for their commerce, particularly their grain. Ironically, their grain. So Ukraine was doing this to basically hit the Russians back at a port, because the Russians have been blowing up the Ukrainian grain ports, which is a war crime. You can't go after like civilian stuff. What the Ukrainians did, they went after a port that is a naval port that is also used, right, for the commercial. So actually, they didn't even blow up the port. They went after the ship anyway, which is totally legit. Thank you, Elizabeth. Bash Brannigan is saying, is it possible to destroy the bridge's foundation? Yes. So, but the only thing is it's not easy. I was reading about this last week, and they were saying that there are a number of issues with trying to destroy the bridge. First of all, the bridge was a very cheap and easy bridge. Russia did not spend a lot of money or time building it. Within 3 years, they built a 12-mile bridge, right? 12 miles is, I don't know what, 16, 18, maybe 16 kilometers, pretty big bridge for only 3 years. So the thing is, if they take down one segment, that segment can be rebuilt. What is more effective is not taking down, the span, that's the word I'm looking for, taking down one bridge span. It's a bunch of separate roads of concrete, right? That are put in place, and then one is put next to it and one is put next to it, like the way that we used to use our Matchbox cars when we were kids, and you'd have the little plastic segments connecting. There's these cement segments that just connect, right? the better way to attack it is taking out the support structure, like you said, the big cement underpinnings that are holding up the bridge, right? Well, what I was reading was in order to do that, you would need to apply the explosives literally to that support structure. Maybe you could do it with a drone, maybe, but probably better to do it with the pylons. Thank you. Thank you, LWD. Probably better, it was saying, to do it with an actual man on the scene, who is there drilling in the pylons and putting explosives in, but that requires an actual man on the scene. So they can, but and I mean, potentially they could use a couple Storm Shadow, or not even a couple. They could use several Storm Shadow missiles, maybe. I mean, it's possible. Yeah. I mean, again, everything Ukraine's doing, they're doing a balancing act of what can they pull off, how many weapons will it take, how many missiles, etc. Let me look here. I want to see it. Also looking at my Twitter to see anything new here. Let me see. Hang on here. Okay, nothing new from my sources here. For the past hour or so, alarming information is coming about another incident in the Black Sea, with the most recent reports mentioning another Russian vessel being hit, although reportedly it is a transport ship. So yeah, there are reports that a Russian transport ship, possibly for oil, has been hit in the same area, but we don't know. Motorists are being evacuated from their cars. We did hear about that a while ago. Okay, very interesting. All right. Let's keep going here. All right, I've updated you on that. Also, and the final point I was going to make, final point, was these attacks are also meant to be psychological attacks. This is Putin's big bridge. Putin loves this bridge. I mean, he's come out both times. It was sort of rededicated, whatever. So the attack is meant to go after something Putin holds dear. The attack is meant to show how weak Putin is, that, again, he can't even defend his own bridge, right? He couldn't even defend his own capital against the drones. Now he can't defend the bridge against the drones. He couldn't defend the Navy against the drones last night when they blew up one of the Russian ships that now is severely damaged and got taken to port, right? So a lot of this is also being done to just make Putin look weak at every step, at every stage of the way as well. And it does, frankly, because, I mean, how did they hit the boats again? I mean, that's crazy. Actually, Vlad did tell me something that reported. I won't even tell you what Vlad told me. I never know when Vlad tells me stuff if I can share it or not. But it's a little crazy that they could even hit a boat at this point. They should have been protected. All right, a little more news. Oh yeah, this was interesting too. I saw like a news story flying around today from Naval News, reporting that Ukraine is also working on a mini submarine drone. It's called the TLK-150. It is quite a small drone, being only 2.5 meters long, or 8 feet, which is kind of interesting. So it's a very small drone, but it's a submarine drone, so it would go underwater entirely, which is very interesting. Ukraine also launched an aerial drone attack on the Russian naval port of Feodosia last night, where the Russian fleet uses a large oil storage facility. Feodosia, actually, it's even on the T-shirt map does it again. Feodosia is on the T-shirt map. This is why I love this map, people. So Feodosia is right down here. So the Ukrainians also launched did I say it was an aerial drone attack? Yes, it was an aerial drone attack on Feodosia. Zaporizhia. So the nuclear plant in Zaporizhia, which is right at the tip. I always like to show you guys with my pen. Right at the tip here, more or less, is occupied Ukraine. So the Russians are occupying the nuclear plant in addition to the land down here. And there's been concern for a while about the Russians possibly blowing up the plant or trying to cause some kind of damage. Well, the latest is that the Russians, after a month, finally, thank you, B. Smith, the Russians finally let the United Nations inspectors check out the plant and go to the roof to see if there were explosives. Thank you, Arifa. Not reportedly, but the UN says they did not find explosives on the roof. The issue here is Russia spent a month refusing the UN's request to go to the top of 2 reactors and check out the roofs to make sure there were no explosives. After a month of saying no, Russia finally said yes. I'm glad they didn't find explosives on it, but really, I mean, I just at this point, right? I mean, if for a month somebody isn't letting you into a room and says, there's no way I'm letting you into that room. Imagine they were able to look at the rest of the plant. They were not allowed on the roof. And then finally you're allowed into the room and you find nothing. I'm kind of wondering if maybe there was something there and you just took it away, right? Anyway, thank you, Duck, Big Hawk, for the duck. In any case, so they didn't find anything, but Ukraine is warning of a false flag attack on Belarusian oil facilities. So Russia, according to Ukraine, they've got intelligence that the Russians really want Belarus, who is their ally up here. Remember, Belarus is run by the dictator Lukashenko. Oh, thank you there for the gift, Jedamam. Run by Lukashenko, and the Russians really want Belarus to enter the war. Now, the reason isn't because Belarus has a good army. They don't. And they don't have a big army, and it's not a very good one. But Russia, I think, would like Ukraine to have to deal with another front in the war. Just like Russia poured like 100,000 men or whatever it was over here by Kupiansk. And the idea was Russia hopes that this would cause Ukraine to have to move troops from Bakhmut, from Donetsk, from Zaporizhia, basically move troops from where Ukraine is already fighting the counteroffensive, right? And have to go up here and fight because Russia's got 100,000 troops and the Ukrainians would go, oh, geez, we've got to go, defend our land. Same thing with Belarus. Russia really wants Belarus to enter the war because the Belarusian troops would try to cross here. Not easy because this is a marsh. It's also heavily defended now by the Ukrainians with mines, etc. But if the Belarusians tried to invade, the Ukrainians would have to at least pay attention to what's going on up here and maybe have to use more troops. And if they had more troops up here, these would be troops that are not down here, right? Anima, you are one step away from getting banned. Warning you right now. Try that one more time and you're gone. Yeah, don't go tell me. Thank you, Mod. At least something like that. Maybe not block them, but mute them at least. So in any case, let's see what happens. But Ukraine is worried that the Russians are basically going to blow up an oil facility and blame it on the Ukrainians. But it's an oil facility in Belarus so that the Belarusians will go, oh my God, the Ukrainians attacked us, right? So let's see what happens. Navalny. So Alexei Navalny, who is the Russian dissident leader of the opposition party, who Putin already threw in jail because Putin's afraid of him. They just gave him another 19 years sentence. 19 years, but even worse than that, his sentence puts him in this sort of special, I don't know, I forgot how they describe it. The jail cell, of course, it's solitary confinement. Light is on 24 hours a day. The lights never go off. And for the first 10 years, he can have no contact with the outside. The first 10 years, he gets no contact with anybody in the outside. I mean, Putin is scared to death of this guy. Some of the thinking, thank you, Ernie. Some of the thinking is that Putin, so I'm looking for, that Putin is so freaked out because of the insurrection, because of the rebellion that Prigozhin did, that this is part of the reason he feels like he needs to give even more of a jail sentence to Navalny to get him out of the way. But I mean, brutal dictatorship what that country has become. I mean, it was never free, but now just brutal dictatorship. Now that's interesting. So Hayes says the SIG tanker, which is the tanker that potentially got attacked, potentially by the Ukrainians this evening in Ukraine, the SIG tanker was delivering aviation fuel from Crimea to Syria. The U.S. had included them on the sanctions list. Oh, I really hope they got that tanker. Hang on a second. Let me look again. I'm looking at my latest news here. All right, hang on, guys. Looking at another update of all my military folks. All right, hang on. Yeah, Russian propaganda claiming nothing's going on, of course. Hang on. Okay, by the looks of this is a guy I trust a lot, Dmitry, who's very good. War Translated on Twitter. By the looks of it, the information about an attack involving several drones against an oil tanker or other targets is true. Traffic on the Russian bridge, the Crimean bridge, the Kirch Bridge was stopped. This is all the result of pulling out of the grain deal. So, very interesting. Yeah, so they may have attacked a Russian oil tanker which would be wild. Absolutely wild. And that's what, Christo Grozev is saying from Bellingcat. The SIG oil tanker that Russian channels report was hit. Thank you, LWD, for the money there. That the Russian oil, that the SIG oil tanker that Russian channels report was hit was in the right place near the bridge and appears to have shuttled oil between Crimea and Syria, worked for Russian armed forces, and was thus a legitimate military target. Oh, very interesting. Very interesting. Thank you, Lee. I was wondering about that. When I heard about this, I was saying, okay, if they went after an oil tanker, is that not a civilian target? Not a civilian target. No. Thank you, Lee Shaw, for that. It's a military target. Very interesting. Rebar, which is, I believe, a Russian source, confirms a hit on the Russian flag tanker SIG. The crew is uninjured, though heavy damage occurred below deck in the engine room. One drone was shot down near the bridge itself. Situation is calm as of now, but Ukrainian secondary attack is noted as possible. Okay, so there you go. Oh, this is going to be really interesting. And that Russian tanker is under U.S. sanctions. Good. Very interesting. Wow. Okay. All right. All right. We'll get back to the news. I'll keep checking in about what's going on with this. I don't know. The good question, whether it was empty or full. I mean, it's kind of a mixed bag, right? You don't want to create an environmental disaster because if you're Ukraine, here's the thing. If you're Ukraine and you're near this bridge, you're creating an environmental disaster, potentially, if there's oil on there, that could hit your own shores. Even though Russia's occupying it, it's still your territory. You don't want the oil to hit here. You don't mind if the oil hits here, with Russia. You don't want the oil hitting here, which is your territory that the Russians are occupying. You don't want the oil going down here, which is the Turks. You don't want the oil going down here, which are the Georgians, right? I think the oil down here is the Georgians. I'm not sure exactly, but the Turks, certainly. You don't want to be hitting Turkish ports. And if there's a big oil spill here, it still could go over here and hit the Romanians, hit the Bulgarians, right? I mean, so, you don't want to be hitting your allies. So I have a hard time believing that the Ukrainians would want to hit a tanker with oil. Having said that, all you need is one tanker with oil to be hit, and there ain't going to be any more tankers with oil going through there. But my suspicion is Ukraine wouldn't do that. That would be like a little bit too far, I think, for them to do that. Oh, interesting. Okay, sorry. Big King Fun is saying aviation gas is different than oil. It will burn or evaporate off for the most part. I mean, that's good, because that would be my concern. Is I think they really would not want to cause. Ukraine wouldn't want to cause an oil spill anyway, because they're the good guys. But they also wouldn't want to, like I said, they wouldn't want to sort of piss off the allies. I'm looking here at a little more. Thank you, Jen. Let me see. Yeah, all the ships are now backed up in the Kirch Bridge. So the ships aren't even going through the strait now, north and south of it. That's good. So it shut everything down. Okay, that's the latest we've got. Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, can Ukraine hire Wagner? I know we talked about that before. You never know, The U.S. officials, some other reports today, U.S. officials are worrying that Putin now is trying to drag out the war intentionally because he's hoping that Donald Trump gets the Republican nomination and Trump becomes president, because Trump has said he no longer wants to fund Ukraine. Let's see, but that's the concern is that Putin has now made a conscious decision to do this, and therefore there is no way that Putin would ever negotiate on anything until the presidential elections, which aren't happening until November of 2024. What else we got? Russia has doubled its defense spending plan for 2023 to more than $100 billion, which makes up 1/3 of all of their public expenditures. So Russia is looking to double its defense budget to 1/3 of its entire budget. Now, this is according to Reuters. The thing is, Russia doesn't have the money. Thank you, Heine, for the hat there. Russia does not have the money to do this. In a way, not in a way. I mean, I don't necessarily want, thank you, Kenneth, for the super sticker. I don't want the Russians spending more on defense, because that's more money that they can use to hurt the Ukrainians, but it's money they can't afford. Thank you, Heine, which is very interesting, because a lot of the money they were making in oil and gas and everything, they're not making anymore. They're not making anymore. So it becomes like the Cold War, basically, where they're spending money they don't have, and eventually they're going to run out. So, in a way, I'm glad Russia's spending the money they don't have. I've got some more stories. Like I told you, it's a busy news day. Let me do a really quick pitch on supporting my work. As you guys know, one of the ways that I sort of ask you to support me, if you can, is to become a monthly contributor. Now, you can become the monthly contributor, number of easy ways. On TikTok, you can do it with being a TikTok subscriber. Actually, oh, by the way, TikTok is trying to fix, I had a report today, they are trying to fix the connection that fixes the Discord, how you basically become a TikTok subscriber. Thank you, Jay, and thank you, Martin. And TikTok, basically the connection between TikTok and Discord. That's what I'm trying to say. They're trying to fix it, so we're trying to figure that out right now. I don't know if Syndicate's on tonight, but I'd messaged Syndicate about, I think he may be traveling. I messaged him about a few things where I need him to do in that regard. But thank you, Gamma, for the gift there. But one way you can become a supporter is becoming a subscriber on TikTok. If you would do that, I very much appreciate it. The second way for any of you is to become a subscriber on Ko-fi. Now, for you all, it's at the bottom of the screen there, ko-fi.com/Aravosis. You all can find the link in my profile on TikTok. Click the link. Thank you. Who's that? Renner. Thank you, Renner. Go to TikTok, click the Linktree link in my profile, and the first thing that comes up is Ko-fi. You can click it, and you can become a monthly contributor. Thank you, Dora. And finally, on YouTube, another way, by the way, you also can do this on Twitch, of course, using your Amazon Prime. Thank you, LWD. And for YouTube, you can become the monthly subscribers simply by hitting the little $ sign at the bottom of the screen. Thank you, Marcy. And look for membership, click it, and it gives you the 3 membership options. Now, for all the memberships other than the TikTok one, because the TikTok one they're still trying to fix, there you will become a VIP member of my Discord community. For all the memberships, including TikTok, you will be able to join me for my Saturday morning show, which I'm doing tomorrow morning, by the way, at 11 a.m. Eastern time. I do a show every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern time for the paid, or most Saturdays. Thank you, Frank, for the paid subscribers. Only for the paid subscribers, by the way. So join me tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Everybody can join for that. And everybody but TikTok, because TikTok is still trying to fix it, can join us on Discord as a VIP member as well, which means you get access to my auctions and everything else. So anyway, if you'd consider it, I appreciate it. All right, guys, let's keep going. A lot more news. This was interesting. Okay, this was very interesting. Russia's ambassador to the United Kingdom, okay, to Great Britain, gets interviewed by, I think, Christiana Amanpour of CNN, and she's asking him about Prigozhin. And right, because Prigozhin's the guy who runs the Wagner Group. He's the guy that tried to overthrow Putin, and then Putin ended up negotiating with him, which was very strange. Thank you, LWD, for the duck, which was very strange because, right, we always said, like, why is Putin being so nice to this guy? And then we found out that Prigozhin was invited to Putin's big conference with the African leaders last week. Then we found out yesterday that Prigozhin got another $21 million in Russian government contracts in the month following his coup attempt. I mean, clearly Prigozhin's doing fine, and Putin feels he's got to be nice to him, even though he tried to overthrow him. Ridiculous, which makes Putin look incredibly weak. Well, the latest now with Prigozhin is the Russian ambassador to Great Britain is defending Prigozhin. Listen to this. I'm going to read you this from CNN's interview. The ambassador says, Christian Amanpour, what happened when his troops, I think the ambassador's saying this. What happened when his troops went to Rostov? Because Prigozhin went to Rostov, a Russian city sort of right southeast of Ukraine, and took control of the city. I mean, it was kind of crazy. The ambassador says, what happened when his troops took Rostov? No one has been killed at all. There was no damage at all. In my understanding, as one soldier described it, he is too outstanding. He's praising him as outstanding. Christian Amanpour says, in response to the nobody was killed, she goes, there were like 13 Russian troops killed. And he goes, that is not my understanding. No, 15. She goes, 15 Russian soldiers were killed. What do you mean nobody was killed? He goes, that is not my understanding. Prigozhin shot down some helicopters and killed 15 Russian troops. His men shot them down. And they're the Russians, official Russiandom, right? The ambassador to Great Britain is defending Prigozhin and saying, no, he didn't kill anybody. They're literally rewriting the entire history now of this guy's coup attempt to make him look better. That is how much Prigozhin owns Vladimir Putin. I mean, I'm like kind of blown away on this. It's very funny. But anyway, all right. There is a CNN poll that is very bad poll, by the way. I mean, a very not good for us poll. New CNN poll shows 55% of Americans oppose giving more aid to Ukraine. Now, what's interesting about this is Republicans broadly say that Congress should not authorize new funding, 71%. Among Democrats, 62% favor additional funding. That's horrible. I think that's the problem right there. We know Republicans are brainwashed by, okay, not all of you. I know all of you aren't brainwashed, but 71% of you are. And certainly the Trump supporters are brainwashed. We know that, okay, by their own media that's lying to them. 71% of Republicans say no more funds for Ukraine. 62% of Democrats are in favor. Democrats should be like 80, 90% of Democrats should be in favor. What is this 60? In other words, Democrats are less in support of Ukraine than Republicans are opposing. So Republicans have much stronger feelings towards Ukraine than Democrats do. That's insane, right? Democrats should be much more supportive. Independents mostly say the U.S. has done enough to help Ukraine, 56%, and that they oppose additional funding, 55%. That's bad because independents usually hold the key. So that means Biden has not won over independents. A majority of Americans do express concern that Russia's war in Ukraine will threaten U.S. national security, 56%, but the number was 72% that were worried about threats to U.S. security back in February of 2022 when Russia invaded. In other words, when the war started, 72% of Americans were concerned that the war would impact U.S. national security. Now only 56%. That, my friends, is two reasons. One, Fox News has been lying to everybody. That's the first problem, right? The second problem is that Biden hasn't been trying to sell the war to anybody. And I've talked about this before. He's made no attempt to try to sell the war to anybody. We never hear about it. I mean, we literally never hear about it. I mean, you hear about new weapons they're giving. You never hear Biden actually. And if Biden, by the way, Biden's a terrible communicator, fine. Get someone else to do it. Get President Obama to do it. Get President Clinton. I mean, I don't care who. Get somebody who can speak well. But this administration refuses to go out there and explain to the American people why this matters. And I'm sorry. Guess what? But by the way, this is a typical Democrat thing. Democrats believe that good news sells itself. And they always believe this, and it drives me crazy. Oh, the people will find out and they'll like it on their own. And you're like, no, you need to kind of beat people over the head with it every day, every day, every day. They don't do it. But that's why you end up having polls like this. Stephen, super chat question or comment. Thank you. I think most Americans don't understand funding isn't sending them money. No, that's an interesting question. It's just sending them stuff. That's an interesting question. You're right. That is an interesting question. Yeah, that's interesting. Right. It could be that. It could be that. It could be that they literally think we're giving them money, Anyway, and mind you, the poll could be wrong. Yes, you can get polls that are wrong sometimes. But still, we are not trying to sell people why this matters. And we should be trying to sell people on why this matters. I'm going to go over the rest of the news sort of quickly here. Christie, who's an Republican presidential candidate, went to Ukraine today, went to Bucha, met with Zelensky. He's saying all the right things. He has really made his campaign about taking on Donald Trump, but he's not doing well. I mean, Trump's the leader in all the polls, so we'll see. Human Rights Watch is calling for an investigation of an attack Russia did last month on the Ukrainian town of Liman. So the day after that Biden said he was going to give cluster munitions, the cluster bombs, to Ukraine. These are the bombs that it sort of goes in a pack like an artillery shell, goes in the air, opens up, and then drops little bomblets. And the Ukrainians need them to go after the Russian troops that are in trenches and things like this. Well, the day after Biden says he's going to provide these weapons to Ukraine, the Russians reportedly used cluster bombs against a civilian neighborhood in the Ukrainian town of Liman, which is actually kind of north of Bakhmut. Human Rights Watch has done an investigation. They say that they've determined that the attack was carried out with a Smerch cluster munition rocket containing fragmentation submunitions. They say this would be a war crime, and they're calling on the investigative bodies to investigate. But I mean, literally, we're talking about, right? We're talking about Ukraine getting the weapons to use them on Russian troops. So Russia turns around and says, I'm going to bomb a civilian neighborhood using the same weapons to teach you a lesson. That is who we're dealing with, folks. And by the way, that's the kind of thing, like if you wanted to tell the American people what this war is about, that would be a good example, but we don't. Finally, there's a really interesting piece in the Times of London. It'll take me a minute to explain this, but honestly, it was really interesting news that they sort of broke today in this piece about Ukraine. Hang on. So a number of different snippets of news they broke in this piece. Thank you, Adam. Please do keep the gifts coming on TikTok. I appreciate it. In December, Ukrainian authorities had been on the brink of ordering the complete evacuation of Kyiv due to the intensity of Russian attacks. So that was kind of interesting right there. None of us had heard of that basically they were getting ready to get rid of, to basically evacuate the capital. Thank you, Timothy. But then they finally got the Patriots, which made a big difference. Ukraine now has more than 2 Patriot batteries. Okay, that was news. Ukraine has more than 2 Patriot batteries. I did not know that. I thought maybe they had more than 2, right? But the battery means the entire system used for shooting the Patriot missiles. You need a battery set up to protect an area you're protecting. So they've got more than 2 of these now. That's newsworthy. It uses a roving battery, which it sent north to shoot down 5 Russian planes in one day. By the way, that's confirmation of that. Remember a couple months ago, those 5 Russian planes, they were like helicopters. I'm trying to remember whether the helicopters were support helicopters or the planes, something like that. And the planes and the helicopters all got blown up. We suspected it might have been the Patriot missile battery that was moved there. And in fact, this story is confirming that it was. So the Ukrainians at least have 1 Patriot missile battery that they're moving around. They've moved it for the counteroffensive. They also moved it north and tricked some of the Russian troops and blew up their planes. A Ukrainian colonel talked about working with NATO allies. Listen to this. The Baltic states are the people who really understand. They give everything they can because they realize that if we don't endure, then they will definitely not endure. You fight, we give. That's it. The Polish people are very good. The Scandinavian countries helped a lot, which is not publicized. The Finns, the Swedes, the Norwegians, the Danes, the British, but the rest of the world is very hard. I had an experience with the French when they didn't understand. They said, "Why don't you surrender?" They asked that directly. Why don't you give up? God, not very impressed with the French. Storm Shadow. Listen to this. It's talking about how they use the Storm Shadow. So the Storm Shadow are the British cruise missiles that the Ukrainians got and that they've been using to quite good effect. The Russians have a really hard time shooting the Storm Shadows down, or impossible time so far, I believe. With Storm Shadow, you launch a trap missile and an anti-radar missile. The trap missile are the missiles. I mean, we kind of knew this, but it's interesting they're describing it. Trap missiles are the missiles that can mimic the radar signature of anything they want. So they can make it look like a, B-52 is coming at the Russians. They could make it look like a different kind of missile is coming. They can do whatever they want. So the trap missile sends out, crazy signatures to make the Russians think other things are attacking them in different positions. Okay. You send an anti-radar missile at the same time that you send one Storm Shadow or a couple Storm Shadows, a trap missile to send out some fake signals of some other stuff that hopefully the Russians will go after, and an anti-radar missile. Listen to this. If they try to intercept Storm Shadow, they get an anti-radiation missile hit on their radar. So in other words, if the Russians turn on their radar to look at the Storm Shadow to try to take it down, the anti-radiation missile looks at it and goes, "Yay!" and attacks the Russian radar and blows it up. I just thought that was interesting. Final point. The Ukrainian colonel said that the Storm Shadows actually had double their publicized range. Now, this is interesting because we've talked about this. Actually, we were talking about this last night. Remember? We were talking about the range of the Storm Shadows, and some people were saying it's only 250 kilometers or whatever, and others were saying, I don't think so. Listen to this. Some 500 kilometers range rather than 250 kilometers, demonstrating, so that's the first thing. 1, the Storm Shadow range is 350 miles or 500 kilometers, not less than that. 2, demonstrating there was no reason for the U.S. to continue holding out on providing ATACMS missiles because ATACMS missiles can only go like 200-mile range, 300 kilometers, which is much less than the Storm Shadow. But the U.S. kept saying, oh, if you give those missiles, there's a danger of hitting Russia. And the U.S. has been changing its story on the ATACMS. All right, that's it for the news. Let me look really quick and see if we've got any further update about the attack on the Russian bridge and possibly oil tanker. Hang on, guys. Let me look here. So it may not be the bridge at all. Some folks are saying now. It may be that the tanker was attacked and the Russians on the bridge freaked out and turned off the bridge lighting. So that's a possibility. That's a possibility. Let me start scrolling down here further. Very interesting. Okay, we don't know. We don't know. Bash Brannigan is asking, is there effective technology to get rid of mines? Yes. Our defense friends could give you a better answer than I, but I know, for example, and we've given some of these to the Ukrainians. Well, there's a couple things. You've got vehicles. I forget, is it sort of the good tanks like the Challenger tanks from the Brits? You've got vehicles that can you put something on the front of it, almost like the old trains in the Wild West that had those grills in front that would push the cows off the track. Something similar in essence. I mean, to make the comparison, something in front that ends up triggering the mines and it doesn't really blow up the tank because it's in front of it, right? So you've got that. The second thing is this cord. I forget what the cord's made of, but it's a cord that has explosives along it, and you shoot a cow catcher. Exactly. You shoot the cord, and the cord can go. Is it 100 meters? I always forget. You guys know this. 300 feet, something like that. The cord goes. It lays down on the ground now because it shoots out, and the cord then blows up. And it now blows up the mines along the cord. So you've now got a corridor that's safe from the mines. So there are a number of ways, and we provided some of the cords, I think, to the Ukrainians. And I think they've got some of the equipment too that can detonate the mines in front of tanks and things. The problem is because they don't have the air power, right? We haven't helped them on that front nearly enough because they don't have the air power. If they get, from what I'd read, I believe, if the Ukrainians get their the vehicles that can actually, blow up the mines with the grill in front of it, however it works, then the Russians come and blow them up with their helicopters and things like that. So they really can't. I think they've not been able to do it that way. They would have to do it very painstakingly. So yes, there are a number of technologies. Yes. All right, guys. I'm just thinking, I'll skip the auction stuff today. You guys know I have an auction over on Discord. The auction goes until next Wednesday. A lot of really cool Ukrainian stuff. Open to everybody, but I do have a VIP section that's only for the monthly subscribers. Like I was just explaining, Ko-fi, YouTube monthly subscribers, Twitch, Discord, etc. And once we get it fixed on Discord, because Discord is currently broken, the connection to TikTok is currently broken, the connection to Discord. Once we can get that fixed, and TikTok's trying to work on it. So once I get a hold of Syndicate, I don't think he's here today, is he? I had him a message to him because there's something he needs to do so we can make sure that the TikTok folks are checking it out. We're going to see about Discord tonight. I was thinking of it, but honestly, it's kind of going late now, so I don't think so because there's so much news here. All right. Let's take questions, guys. Let's take questions. All right. What do we got? Latest on escorting grain ships? No information. There's nothing on escorting grain ships. Ain't no news on that front. Yep. I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, hang on a second. And then 6 Evo, I'll get to you next. Storm the ship. Why is Russia is collapsing trending on Twitter? No idea. Somebody must be up to something if it's happening, but I don't know. Why have there been so many explosions and attacks in the last 48 hours? I don't know if there's been so many. Thank you, Artur. I don't know. I mean, clearly the Ukrainians decided they were going to really go after the naval stuff for a 1-2 punch, maybe a 3 punch, right? In the last 24 hours. Last night they went after the ship, or this morning, whenever it was, they went after the Russian ship that they did a lot of damage to. Excuse me. And then now they're either going after the Kirch Bridge or maybe a Russian oil tanker, or maybe both. Who knows? I mean, okay, to some degree, Russia has clearly upped its game in terms of not even its game, but Russia has clearly upped its attacks against Ukraine's grain, right? We know that, especially in like the last week. They went after Ukrainian ports. Thank you, Nicholas. Ukrainian grain ports that are right on the Danube, right across from Romania, because they're trying to do everything they can to stop the Ukrainians from selling grain. That, I think, is probably one big reason the Ukrainians are doing this as kind of a retaliation. And basically saying, fine, you go after our shipping, we're going after your shipping. We're going after your military ships, and we're going after your tankers, is my guess. And maybe going after the bridge as well, which I hope by the way, they're definitely going after that bridge. We still have to see whether they went after the bridge last night too, or this evening, I guess, in Ukraine too. But even if they didn't, they're going after that bridge soon. They clearly are. Anyway, what else? Oh, yeah, so 6 Evo. What do we got here? What's the latest news on the Kirch Bridge? Is the attack still going on? Not that we know. What are the possible outcomes? The latest news is we don't know. It is possible Ukraine was attacking the Kirch Bridge. It is also possible that Ukraine was attacking a tanker that has contracts with the Russian military, so it would be a military target, but an oil tanker, it's possible. The Martin is saying there's audio recording from the ship saying their engine was flooded and they need a tug. We did see one report that their engine room was having problems, but we don't know. I mean, that's the latest. We don't know. Thank you, Addie. We don't know if they well, first of all, we also don't know is, did they attack the bridge or did they attack the boat or did they do both? Did they not attack the boat, but they attacked the bridge, and some of the debris, when the Russians blew up some of the drones or whatever, fell down on the boat and caused damage? We know in Ukraine, for example, yeah, exactly. In like Kyiv, some people have been hurt and I think even killed by the drone, the debris from the drone that comes crashing down has killed some Ukrainians. So we know, that stuff can be heavy enough and explosive enough to cause damage. Same thing if it hits a ship or a tanker or something else. So we just don't know. That's all we know so far. Poland and Belarusian border tensions still there. The Lithuanians today closed a couple of their border crossings with Belarus because they're still really worried about it. There's no real news there, but that's the latest of that. Oh, but they're still very worried about it. Sorry, looking here. Looking here. Yep, people are still saying this was a U.S. sanctioned vessel, this oil tanker that potentially got hit by the Ukrainians tonight. This was a U.S. sanctioned vessel, has likely shuttled thousands of barrels of Russian oil for military use in the last few months, and they pulled up some of the data. A source close to Rosmoreshflot, which is the Russian, probably commercial boating or whatever it is, organization, reports that a marine drone crashed into a tanker at a distance of 30 miles from the Kerch Straits. Interesting. Okay, so we're still seeing more suggestions that this was an attack on a tanker, which is very interesting. I'm enjoying it, you guys. It got very interesting. Because that would be, as I said, that would be Ukraine trying to basically send the message that the tankers aren't safe. That basically, if you're going to shut down Ukraine's, commercial transportation, we're going to shut down yours, which hope it's true. Looking here. Okay. Yeah. Nothing else there. Nothing else on that. The drone boats, what are the size of them? Are they like 12 feet or 15 feet? They're not huge. Are they like 12 feet? I forget. What's the size of the drone boats that the Ukrainians are using? Because they've shown pictures of them. They've definitely shown pictures of them. Nuclear war has no winner. Correct, Vlad. Yeah. No, I mean, because literally, it depends what you mean, I guess. Vlad was asking, a different Vlad, not my friend Vlad. Do you think nuclear war has no winner is still a valid concept? Depends what you mean. I mean, if you're talking about nuclear war, meaning Russia and America nuke each other, yeah. They nuke us, we nuke them. And there's no way for them to nuke us in a way that stops us from nuking them, because we've got nuclear submarines, and the same thing goes for them. They have nuclear submarines. By the way, the Brits and the French also have nuclear submarines. So any of us who get attacked can attack back easily. So yeah, a nuclear war like that, there are no survivors. I'm sorry, guys, I'm yawning at you again tonight. If Russia wants to use nukes in Ukraine, it's a different story. Them using nukes in Ukraine doesn't necessarily mean nuclear war, but I think it means NATO enters the war. But it doesn't necessarily mean there'd be a nuclear war in response, right? But a nuclear war like outright, yeah. I mean, we have the ability to kill them. They have the ability to kill us, which tends to mean we don't use it. Thank you, Lord and Beast. I'm going to say Lord and Beast. Oh, somebody's upset about their oil tanker and their bridge, I see. All right, what else we got, guys? What else we got? Oh, boy. Excuse me. Oh, sorry, guys. I am so tired. Oh, you know what? I actually went to bed late last night. That's why. What else we got going on? Well, that's kind of crazy. Hopefully, here we go. From Anthony, hopefully Belarus is watching TV tonight. What's going on? Oh, you mean for this? I see what you mean. Right. Basically a FAFO. Yes, FAFO moment for Belarus, watching what Ukraine's doing there. That's true. Hang on. I don't see any super chat. I mean, I get the super chats lined up here. There's no super chat from anybody else. Did somebody ask one that went through as a super sticker or something? Sorry, somebody said there was some other super chat, but there is no other super chat. VVIPT super chat? There is no such super chat. Did somebody write something that wasn't a super chat, maybe? Okay, maybe you did as a super question or something. Okay, because it's not showing up. Oh, Syndicate, you are there. Look at the message I sent you, please, on Signal. I need to make sure of what I asked you about before I asked TikTok to look into but they're trying to fix the connection with Discord now. Here we go. All right, thank you for that. Support is likely slow as time moves on, so why not give them what they need already? To Ukraine? Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Excellent point. Excellent point. So V-Viper is talking about the polling from CNN that seems to be showing that Americans are getting less supportive of supporting Ukraine. And exactly right. At the beginning of the war, they were way more supportive. Now that we're a year and a half in, they're less supportive. Well, one of the things I didn't even read to you guys was one of the numbers where people are and by the way, I think it's 70% or something of Americans, people are really concerned that the war isn't going to ever end, that it's going to go on forever. And it was something like 70 something percent of Americans. It was a very high number. Biden's strategy all along was to drag this thing out. I've said it from the beginning. His strategy was not to give Ukraine what it needed to win. His strategy was to give Ukraine what it needed to survive. And hopefully, eventually, Ukraine and Russia would get tired of fighting each other and would give each other hugs and would work out a compromise, which is a ridiculous thing to assume. But nonetheless, that's what Biden assumed. Thank you, adventurers. And therefore, his strategy was to drag this thing out. And guess what? You drag it out and people get tired. And that's exactly what happened. Not only did dragging it out help the Russians, because the Russians, therefore, were able to dig in, right? They were able to do all the defenses and everything in Crimea now with the mines and everything else. So Ukraine's having a really hard time dislodging them. But it also meant that the American people are starting to get fed up of supporting the war. And, as I've said before, as also, Biden isn't explaining to the American people why they should support the war. So, if you're not telling them why, and it's going on, and it looks like it could go on for a long time, and they're spending a lot of money, people get tired of it. So, yes, you are correct. This we should have given Ukraine what it needed. Yes, because the war possibly could have ended sooner. No, it's a stupid strategy to drag it out. It's a really stupid strategy. Six Evo says, what are the outcomes despite it all of an oil tanker or the bridge? Well, I mean, the bridge is great. We really want the bridge to be taken out because, as Zelensky said last week, the bridge is hugely important for supplying all of the Russian invasion and everything. I mean, food, water, oil, ammunition, troops, weapons, you name it, right? So very important. As far as if it were an oil tanker, well, that's interesting too, because if it's an oil tanker, you could scare every other oil tanker into not wanting to send oil, basically not wanting to transport oil in and out of Russia. Now, a couple different things, actually. A couple different things. One, commercial oil tankers that are not Russian won't want to transfer, won't want to even work there at all. Russian oil tankers, if it's the Russian government ordering them, maybe they don't have a choice. But how are they going to get insurance? Because now, right? Now the insurers who insure the oil tankers know that Ukraine's hitting the oil tanker. Let's pretend Ukraine did hit an oil tanker. We don't know. But if they didn't, if it was on purpose, even if it wasn't on purpose, they now know they can get hit. So their insurance premiums, if they can even be insured, go through the roof. If it's oil from other countries, or I should say oil tankers from other countries, their own people may not want to even visit Russia. And finally, it's not just oil that goes through that area. A lot of Russian grain goes through that area too. Thank you, Lord and Beast. So now you've got basically other Russian commerce that might have a very difficult time going through anywhere in the Black Sea in that area. So basically, the Ukrainians may have effectively cut off commerce to Russia in the way that Russia cut off sea-based commerce to Ukraine. And I'm sure that's one of their big goals. The question is whether they pull it off. Hang on, I'm going to look at my temperature setting. My apartment's getting a little too cool now. There we go. All right, much better. Oh, it's an interesting question. Martin asks, do you think China is sending, oops, sorry, I got a gift from Lord and Beast taking up the screen. Thank you for that. Martin asks, do you think China is sending a message to Russia by accepting to attend the Ukrainian peace talks? It's very strange. Saudi Arabia is hosting peace talks, I think starting tomorrow. I think it's August 5th and 6th, actually, tomorrow and Sunday. And a lot of developing countries are going. Europe's going. America's going. I assume Canada. And the Ukrainians are going. And the Chinese are going, which is very interesting. Russia was not invited, which is also very interesting. China going is kind of fascinating. I think China is still kind of trying to, skirt, even though China's helping Russia, they're trying to help Russia, but not piss off the rest of the world, right? Because China's got a lot of investment in Africa. China has to worry about Europe and America in terms of the trade they do and the importance to their economy, when China's economy, by the way, has been slowing down dangerously and doesn't look very good for the future anyway, but their economy is slowing down horrifically. So yeah, I mean, I don't, the one thing I will say about this conference is Ukraine has been saying positive things about it. And if Ukraine's saying positive things about it, that's interesting. So it means that it sounds like they're not worried at this point. Well, not worried, who knows? They might be worried, but that the conference might be some effort to sandbag Ukraine and try to convince them, you need to basically reach peace with Russia, give up some land or whatever. I mean, who knows? But I don't know. I think it's certainly interesting. Thank you, Enoch. It's interesting. All right, so we're doing a look again here to see any updates on the bridge or whatever. All right, hang on, guys. Yep, they're still saying Russian tanker. Yeah, thank you, David and Jeremy, both of you guys, for the gifts there. Anthony, super chat questions. Are the Russians ever going to wake up to the war? I guess it depends what you mean by that. What do you mean? I mean, do you mean are the Russian people ever going to sort of realize they're at war? I mean, that's what the Ukrainians are trying to do now. They're kind of trying to take it to the Russians, right? I mean, that's also why they've been attacking Moscow, so that the Russians in their, capital city sort of realize that they're being threatened as well. But I'm not sure what you mean by that, though. Thank you for that. But you can do a follow-up explanation if you want without paying for it. I don't mind. But I'm just not sure what you mean by the question, by sort of them waking up to the war. Well, that's interesting, Tonka. Really? JP Morgan no longer processing Russian grain payments? I don't know. That's interesting. Wilson is saying or asking, got to change the nursery rhyme to Kirch Bridge is falling down. Yep. London Bridge is falling down. Couldn't the talks also be a chance to push China away from Russia? Certainly, maybe with grain. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe. We know that China is the largest recipient of Ukrainian grain exports, which is interesting. But I don't know. I don't know whether there is any way of, sort of getting China on board. You know what I mean? I don't know. All right, hang on here. I'm looking more to see. Yep, the tanker was delivering aviation fuel sanctioned by the U.S. Still don't know if they went after the bridge. And again, part of the problem is the lights on the bridge are turned off, and we may not know. Sunrise is usually like 4:30, 5 a.m., maybe 4:30, 4:30 in Ukraine. You start to be able to see some of the light from what I've been seeing. Right now, it's 2 in the morning, 7 p.m. Washington. Yeah, 7 hours ahead. 2 in the morning in Ukraine. So we've got a good 2 hours until we start to get any kind of a sense of what happened. Is there a bridge? What's going on? Yeah, Mike says 24% of China's grain imports are from Ukraine. Exactly. And they're the number one country that Ukraine exports to. And actually, China gets a lot of corn. Actually, and be careful with those numbers, because one of the numbers is what percentage of Ukraine's exports go to China, and the other is what percent of China's imports of grain or corn. And grain, potentially the Russians can fill, but the corn the Russians cannot fill. So China has also lost a lot of corn. They get a lot of corn from Ukraine, actually, and they've lost that, and the Russians can't replace it because the Russians shut it down. All right. Yeah, we don't, because there's no, hold on. All right. A little maybe detail. Let me see here. Nope. There's no more detail. That's all we've got on the attack on the bridge. Yeah. Nothing else. What else, guys? Because I think I'm going to skip the Discord tonight, because we're going to do a little play in the hall with the dogs and the visitors after this. Why can't Russia put its Navy ships around the bridge to take out the incoming missiles? Oh, this is what I was going to say. I mean, they can, but then they're not using the Navy ships for anything else. I mean, well, I guess it's a few things. That's a good question, actually. That's a good question. First of all, taking out drones. Drones aren't always easy to take out, right? Oh, that's interesting. Oh, by the way, there's a number of fake photos out there. There are a number of photos from 2019 showing what people are claiming is the boat being hit. So I don't know whether that's what you saw, but you want to be really sure, because I read, like, right when the show started, 2 different really nice photos being shared are from years ago. So I would be careful of your sources before you believe it. That's all I'm saying. What were we saying, guys? Sorry, I was looking at something else, and then I wanted to respond to what Kelly was saying. Oh, the Navy ships. Yeah. So one of the things I was thinking of is Russia now has to worry about my hair. My hair takes probably 1 minute. I get it wet, and then I put some gel on it, and I go like that. That's how long my hair takes. It is what it is. That's why it's different every day. It just sort of does whatever it wants. Sorry, somebody asked. Ukraine going after the tanker means Russia may have to escort the tankers in the future, which is pretty wild. Because if Russia's got to export, you want to go off good? Because if Russia wants to export the tankers, Russia now has to use military ships that should have been used for something else, right? So you're adding a cost to what Russia's doing. And frankly, you're providing more targets potentially, because now maybe you can go after a Russian ship as well. So anyway, all right, guys, I'm going to one last look on the news here, but I don't think we've got any additional news on the attacks. We don't. All right. Any other big questions? Because otherwise I may wrap up, guys, because we got a show tomorrow morning as well. Like I said, I've got my 11 a.m. show tomorrow that we're doing 11 a.m. Eastern time US, that I will be doing for the paid subscribers. I will be on TikTok, and I will also be over on on Discord, excuse me. So TikTok is for the TikTok subscribers, and then I'll be on YouTube for the, not YouTube, I'm sorry. Thank you, Tomcat. I will be on Discord for the YouTube subscribers, the Twitch, the Discord, everybody else. So go to one of those 2 places. Oops, sorry, looking here at the news, 135. All right, I am going to do a wrap up of the news, I think, and then call it quits, guys. We've been going over a little over an hour and 10 here. And then I'll see you all in the morning. Maybe not all of you. Sorry, dog. I can't help you right now. My dog wants some water. You'll get water when I'm almost done. Oh, God, she's giving me that face. She gives me this face like, thank you, Kanowski, for that. All right, guys. Kirch Bridge reportedly under attack by sea and air drones, although now the information is that it looks possibly like Ukraine was going after a Russian oil tanker that works for the military. We don't know. Ukraine, the light should be hitting, dawn should be hitting possibly in 2 hours in Ukraine, so we may have an idea then. Ukraine used an unmanned drone boat to attack a Russian warship in the port of Novorossiysk this morning as well. So this morning they went after a boat, caused major damage to the Russian warboat, to the Russian warboat, to the Russian warship. And then this evening went after either the bridge or a tanker or possibly both. So a lot of news there. Ukraine, I mentioned, is also working on a mini submarine, a submarine drone, excuse me. Ukraine also launched an aerial drone attack on the Russian naval port at Feodosia in Crimea. The UN was finally able to investigate the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant roofs and didn't find any bombs. But of course, it's after a month of Russia refusing to let them, so who knows? Ukraine is warning of a false flag attack in Belarus on an oil facility there that the Russians may be trying to trick Belarus into joining the war. Well, actually invading. They're already helping Russia, but actually invading. Navalny, Russian political prisoner, opposition leader, got 19 years in prison today, in addition to his sentence that already was a dozen or so years. U.S. officials are worried that Putin is dragging out the war on purpose now, hoping that Trump will get elected. Russia has doubled its defense budget, or its defense budget, which now will take up 1/3 of Russia's entire budget, which should be interesting because Russia just doesn't have the money to do that. So, in a way, good, because they're breaking the bank just like they did at the end of the Soviet Union. Russia's ambassador to the UK defended Prigozhin today. That was bizarre, and just one more sign of the fact that Prigozhin is the one leading Putin and not the other way around. A new CNN poll disturbingly says 55% of Americans oppose giving more aid to Ukraine. Christie, Republican presidential candidate, went to Ukraine today, met with Zelensky, went to Bucha, said a lot of very good things. Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty reports that Human Rights Watch has called for an investigation into an attack last month on the Ukrainian town of Liman that killed 9 people and injured a dozen others by what appear to have been Russian cluster munitions on a residential area, which would be a war crime. The Times of London had a really interesting piece that had a lot of different things. I'm not going to go through all of them again. Either go watch my show on YouTube or go check out the Times of London, but a lot of interesting tidbits in the news there. And that's it. All right. And then tomorrow morning, like I said, at 11 a.m. Eastern time, US, I will be on TikTok with the TikTok subscribers, and then Discord with YouTube, Discord, Ko-fi, Twitch. And in Discord, you go to the thing where it says the weekly VIP weekly show, something like that. And that's where we'll be. All right, guys. All right. Thank you. And go check out Discord anyway. We've got really cool auctions. Like I said, of really cool Ukrainian stuff. Oh, geez. My little Ukrainian officer's hat. One of the things I'm auctioning off is a Ukrainian officer's hat that, anyway, it's being auctioned. So very cool. I'm not going to put it on again. It'll mess up my hair. And it hurt me last. It's a little small for me. I have a very large hat size. I'm like 7 3/4. I'm going to guess this is 7.5 or 7 1/4. But anyway, very cool hat. Lots of other really neat stuff we're auctioning off. Go check it out. Half the proceeds go back to Ukraine. So it's for a good cause. And the other half go to support my work. So thank you, guys. All right. I'm going to do bid you adieu. Go have a little more dinner. And thank you, mods, for getting all the trolls tonight. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. Thank you for the gifts. And otherwise, do try to join me tomorrow if you're one of the paid subscribers, or if you're not, consider becoming one. Thank you, peoples. Go and become a paid subscriber and join us tomorrow morning for our coffee chat. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good night. I will see you guys. Otherwise, I'll see you Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern time, US. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you, mods. Everybody else, do.